Hello and welcome to the Small Business Briefing. I'm Brian Calley, the CEO of the Small Business Association of Michigan.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Sarah Miller, Vice President of Marketing and Strategic Communications. And I want to say welcome to one of our new elite members, Brave Work. Brave Work is headquartered in Houghton. So welcome to owner Jen Julian and the rest of the Brave Work team. And we're able to welcome this new member on behalf of our sponsor, Consumers Credit Union. You can learn more about them at consumerscu.org. So, Brian, we're joined with today by Beth Goodman from the Accident Fund, which is a longtime SBAM partner. And so I'm going to turn it over to you for that conversation.
Yeah, excellent. So excited to have this kind of a refresher for our members and those watching about one of the most important and long-term partnerships that SBAM has. And to help us with this conversation is Accident Fund Regional Director Beth Goodman. And so Beth, welcome and thanks for joining us today. And I wonder if you could maybe, first of all, like, who is the Accident Fund? What does the Accident Fund do?
Absolutely. So it's maybe a name that you've heard before. But let me tell you, the Accident Fund Insurance Company of America is one of the leading workers' compensation insurance organizations. We manage risk and minimize loss for our policyholders. We create a safer work environment for their workers and build businesses with our independent agent partners. We're neighbors with SBAM as we're located and headquartered in downtown Lansing. We are over a 100-year-old company. We're licensed to write in all 50 states, and we have grown to be the 7th largest writer of workers' compensation in the country. We've had
Excellent. Thanks, Beth.
Amazing growth in the last 15 years and recently acquired Ameritrust Group out of Southfield. So we're working on that integration now.
All right, beautiful. Well, so I mentioned as I introduced this conversation, or this conversation was that we have a long-standing partnership that we work with Accident Fund and workers' compensation insurance for small businesses. Maybe just give us an idea or flavor of what's the program offered through SBAM.
Good. It's pretty simple. We've been partners for about 10 years, and it's a member benefit, which gives members who write their work comp insurance through Accident Fund a 5% upfront discount. And then in some situations that can cover the cost of membership itself, and then allows members to take advantage of all of the other benefits offered by SBAM. Then the program offers a potential to earn a dividend based on performance of the entire group. And then lastly, all members have access to our safety toolkit.
All right, excellent. And that, is one thing that we do like to focus on or explain is we see the dividend, the discount, and then also the dividends that are paid, and then compare that to the cost of an SBAM membership. And you come out, so many of our members literally come out net ahead. So the discount essentially pays for the membership and then some. In many cases, it's really been pretty consistent. In fact, as memory serves, that dividend has been very, very consistent over the course of the last several years. Maybe just give us a sense for what the typical dividend looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So the 5% upfront discount, that will differ because everybody's premiums are a little bit different based on the type of business. And that's paid 15 months after the program period ends. But to give you a flavor, over the past 10 years, members have saved about over $1 million with that 5% upfront discount. And then the dividends that are paid on the back end have exceeded $500 million. So this program, has paid back members $1.5 million. In November, there's great news. We'll be calculating our next dividend because, like I said, we do this annually, and we're estimating another 100,000 going back to members. So that's 150 SBAM members that participate in the program that are going to take a pro rata share of that $100,000. To simplify, if we said on average, it'd be $1,000 going back to each member. But again, premiums differ, and some will get larger dividends and smaller dividends, but definitely a significant amount of money that goes right back into businesses. And it's a check that's mailed right to the member policyholders, and they get to see the value of being in the program and of all of their hard work to keep safe workplaces.
Excellent. So if you're not in on this yet, if you're watching this, if you're not in on it, please, we're going to tell you, we're going to close this in a few minutes by telling you how you can actually get started in it. But let me back up a little bit. I heard you mention earlier the toolkit and the safety toolkit. And when you talk about dividends, it has to do with what the experience over the last year was, safer and accident-free, more accident-free. Our members are, the more likely there'll be a dividend paid back. But tell us a little bit about this this toolkit, which apparently, given $1.5 million going back to members over the last over the course of the last 10 years, it must be a pretty effective toolkit.
Yeah, it is. It's a great resource. So, business owners, safety directors, human resource departments are always looking for ways to promote safety. And this toolkit is a wonderful tool, a way to do that. I do encourage everyone to check it out. Really nice thing is that all SBAM members have access to the toolkit, whether you write your policy with accident fund or not. So definitely worth checking out this afternoon or making a note to do that later. The toolkit contains a variety of resources to help businesses reduce risk in the workplace. In the toolkit, they'll find assessments, employee trainings, plans, tip sheets, posters, just all kinds of information. Again, this is what we do. We just try to keep workplaces safe and get every employee home at the end of the day safely to their family. And so it's a great place to go to look. Our primary goal is to keep on-the-job injuries from occurring, but however, accidents happen, and then we strive to provide the teammates with security and compassionate care and the opportunity to return to work as soon as possible. It speaks for itself because lower accidents lead to lower insurance rates and then potential dividends as well. So it just comes full circle, and it's just the right thing to do for employees. Brian pointed out, the more members that participate in the program, the higher potential payout we have. So you're, feeding right into your fellow members as well by taking advantage. How do you get to the toolkit? You just go to accidentfund.com and click on the resource library link near the top of the page. And again, I encourage everybody to check that out. That's for all members.
Yeah, excellent. And then finally, if so somebody's watching this said, all right, I've got an SBAM membership, have to buy workers' comp, but if I can maybe put these things together and get in on both the discount and the dividend, how would you even go about getting started?
Yeah, this is the easiest part. An accident fund doesn't sell anything direct. We use local independent agents. So you can contact your local accident fund agent. You can either reach out to the SBAM staff for a list of accident fund agents who are also members, or you can go to accidentfund.com and click on find an agent. Again, that's near the top of the page, and put in a zip code, look for your area, and find an accident fund agent.
All right, excellent. Of course, we keep that list close at hand as well. If you wanted to even just email us just for a shortcut and say, hey, help me out with it, sbam@sbam.org. We'll get you into us, and we'd be happy to hold your hand through the whole process too. But really, your local agent's going to be able to do this for you. Beth, thank you so much for joining us and for the long-term partnership with the Accident Fund and for the $1.5 million that has gone back to our members over the last 10 years.
Absolutely. That's the best part of my job is when those checks come out. So thank you for the opportunity to remind everybody.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Yes, thank you, Beth. And that dividend check does more than pay for an SBAM membership. So just pointing that out to everyone, encourage you to get a quote. Like Brian said, you can email us, or I did put a link in the chat for more information. So I look forward to helping some folks get those quotes soon. All right, so we are early in the month here, and we don't have a Data Monday today, but some of the statistics from 2022 are coming more into focus. In particular, Michigan continues to lose ground on household income compared to the nation, especially when you consider the inflationary impact. So Brian, why don't you walk us through this?
Yeah, so I mean, if you were to look in a vacuum, if you were to take a look at the median household income in the state of Michigan in in 2022. In a vacuum, you'd think, between 2019 and 2022, by the way, I should say that there was, Bridge, Michigan did a really great article and laid out some statistics that caught my eye a couple of weeks ago, and I've just been holding it for an opportunity to share it with our members here. And so in a vacuum, you'd look at it and say, wow, median household income went up $7,400 between 2019 and 2022. So pretty healthy increase. That was, let's see, it was 66,986 was the amount that it rose to. But during that same time period, inflation in totality was up 15%. And so the actual buying power of the median household income was down about 2.6% during that time period. So it's not necessarily new information to people that the idea of inflation has exceeded income growth, even though income growth has been higher than normal. Looking at both what's happened here, but then also what's happened in relative to the rest of the nation is quite insightful. So the Michigan's median income in terms of ranking nationally has dropped now to 37th. So we are 37th in the country in terms of median household income. Back in 2019, we were 32nd. So we fell 5 spaces. So every state in the country has struggled with inflation. And so inflation is not, in most places, has not been keeping up. But Michigan lost ground compared to other states during those 3 years, which is, of course, pretty concerning. That is, when you consider the economic development strategies over the last few years that have been employed, they've really been focused in on manufacturing production. And if you were to look at the states that did well and the states that have been falling behind, you'll see that while that plays an important role in the economy. Certainly, we have a big reliance on manufacturing production here in our state. When it comes to median household income, the reliance that we have is one of the things that is holding us back, again, relative to other states. Everybody has dealt with inflation, but on the flip side of that, income not keeping pace and falling behind compared to other states is unfortunately a trend that there doesn't seem to be anything on the horizon that would suggest that anything different is going to happen soon.
All right, so this is proving to be a complicated year. Inflation is coming down, interest rates are likely to stay up higher and longer, and of course, the mounting conflicts around the world. What do you make of all of this?
Over the weekend is just absolutely shocking brutality, difficult to comprehend what has happened in Israel and now, of course, another big conflict that has just rising geopolitical tensions. There's also, of course, Ukraine and Russia, the war that's happening there, and that's just the types of disruptions. But what's a little different now is the geopolitical tensions they're a little more concerning than they were just a little while ago, because they're just the confidence and the ambition of other countries like China, for example, or Russia, that are involved as kind of secondary players in these instances where it might seem like a distant, far off place. And with what's happening in Israel, and we in Michigan do have a lot of business connections in Israel. What's also playing out there are bigger players on either sides of this war, this new war conflict that really makes the whole economic landscape that much more challenging at a time when we already face some headwinds. And we have noticed both in our surveys, but also in different aspects of the way we at SBAM interact in the economy and with our members, that things like raising interest rates to keep inflation down, but still really difficult employment situations with labor shortages and population trends, that these things are just mounting up, and it is affecting confidence out there. So we see it a little bit earlier here than economic statistics show it with small businesses. But that is it, all of these aspects of what's happening around the globe. It puts what was already a risk that much higher in terms of the recessionary risk that we face. So I'm not surprised that our last survey showed that more and more businesses are now starting to take actions to prepare for a potential recession, given all of this uncertainty, the conflicts that are mounting around the world. And I just mentioned a few, but there's also tensions growing in Taiwan with China. There's as India sees what's happening in with China's rise to power and just kind of raising ambitions there too, which again, ambition is not necessarily a bad thing, but when it comes to disruption on the world stage, we just have to recognize it creates risks. Security risks, yes, those are obvious, but also economic risks that it's any of one of these things on their own would cause some disruption, but when you add them on top of each other, it creates a pretty risky landscape when it comes to our economic future, and it's the types of risk that are completely outside of the control of small business owners.
All right, now let's talk about some disruption happening closer to home and get an update on the UAW strike. What's the latest?
The strike over last week. So the first thing to say is that the UAW did not expand the official strike against the Stellantis, General Motors, and Ford. The main reason that they didn't do that was because reportedly General Motors had agreed to fold in the battery plants, which are joint ventures. They're not just, General Motors doesn't just have battery plants on their own. They have joint ventures with other companies. General Motors agreed to fold those into the master agreement with the UAW. This is something that previously it was thought to be not possible because those partners wouldn't agree to it, and yet the UAW really wanted to put a marker down on this because as cars move to fully electric from the old style engine, the idea that the place where the job growth is coming from wouldn't be covered by union agreements was a threat to the unions. And so General Motors did not confirm that they had agreed to this, but the fact that they did not expand the strike was a pretty good indication that the union felt confident that they got it. They went ahead and announced it. I thought it was at least, I guess nothing shocks me anymore, but the fact that the president of the UAW, Sean Fain, when he did his update on Friday, had a T-shirt on that said "Eat the Rich," seemed needlessly confrontational, given that they were not announcing a new strike, but or an expanded strike. Now, it is true though that there are additional layoffs that are happening as a result of those that are already on strike. Stellantis is also asking some of their white collar workers to cross picket lines to do some parts distribution. This is one of the areas where, car repairs and things, it's going to really get, the longer this goes on, the more likely it is to affect people that right now feel like, well, I'm not going to be buying a new car, so maybe it won't affect me as directly. But the longer it goes on, the more there'll be ripple impacts that start affecting things across the board. And then one other thing, Sarah, was that the 4,000 UAW members that build Mack trucks, so think of semi trucks, there was a tentative agreement. The union and management agreed to a contract. It went to the membership for ratification or for a vote, and it got defeated 73 to 27. It wasn't even close. And this was one that the UAW had agreed with management on. They were just looking for ratification from members. And it went down by a very, very wide margin. About 4,000 employees. Those plants aren't in Michigan. I'm sure that there are still impacts or connections here, but and just give you an idea that even with even if the UAW negotiates a contract, doesn't mean the membership's going to accept it. And but I do think that all eyes are on the agreements with Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis, and others are maybe reluctant to settle a contract till they see what the traditional automakers do.
All right. Well, obviously, we'll continue to keep everyone up to date on the strike and the impact. So, Brian, this is kind of an interesting story. Students are suing universities for refunds back when there were pandemic-related closures. Can you tell us a little bit more about this issue?
Yeah, this is kind of an interesting case. It's one of those issues that is not resolved yet from the closure requirements before. So the state required closures, but some universities, even after the state allowed the return to universities for learning, they chose not to. And there are students that are suing, students and parents that are suing, saying they paid for an education that was in person and room and board and all the things that you have to do or that you have to pay for when you go to a traditional public university, and the universities didn't deliver on what they said. So essentially, these individuals, these students and their families are looking for refunds. There are 9 universities that are included in the lawsuit. It has made its way up through to the Supreme Court. So pretty big deal that the Supreme Court took this case on. I can't pretend like I'm some kind of expert in this area. It's kind of unprecedented. It's hard to imagine how they're going to decide. I do know that the government side has certain advantages whenever the government gets sued, and universities are part of the government. Now, public university is part of the government. It is interesting how they always talk about, sometimes they don't want to be, or they present as though they're not part of the government, and when convenient, and they present as they are part of the government when convenient. But in this case, I think it's those suing have an uphill battle because of government closures, government expectations, and so forth. But that were imposed down by the state. But again, many universities stayed close to in-person education, stayed closed to in-person education for longer than the state mandated it. And so the fact that the Supreme Court had agreed to hear this case, I think makes it very, very interesting in that it wasn't government immunity or kind of government privilege wasn't enough to keep it off the Supreme Court docket. It means it's really one to watch.
Okay, and finally for today, Michigan Future did an article on some basic migration patterns that were pretty insightful on where young people are moving across the landscape.
Yeah, so think about those that are age 16 to 26. So the first decade of kind of the normal working years for individuals, although 16-year-olds to 20-year-olds are much, much less likely to be in the workforce than they used to, but 16 to 26. In terms of their migration patterns, where are they going, where are they moving to and from? A few insights that came out of it that I just found very telling and very interesting. So first is that the higher the parents' income, the more likely the parents are to leave where they're from. Okay, so higher income households, kids that are growing up in those households, when they hit those years, they're much more likely to leave than lower or moderate income households. Not a surprise, but parents' income is highly predictive of bachelor degree attainment. And And then those with bachelor's degrees are more likely to leave than those without. The smaller the population of a commuting zone, the more that they leave. So commuting zone, think about just a radius or whatever, an area market where people live and work. And so if you're to look at it at a particular area, the smaller the population, the more likely that 16 to 26-year-olds are to leave. Again, when you look at overall population performance in Michigan, that's not going to be a surprise to people in rural areas that have seen population pretty substantial population declines. The top quintile of kids when they leave and when they stay in a state, they go to Detroit and Grand Rapids. When they go out of state, they go to New York City, Chicago, Denver, and other big metros. So those higher income students that are more likely to leave, if they stay in the state, they're going to Southeast Michigan or West Michigan and Detroit or Grand Rapids. And when they go further, they're going to the really big metropolitan areas. So and then the final thing is, it was really clear that while all of these things are true about where people are going, so Michigan is losing 16 to 26-year-olds, they're going other places. Our outbound migration is a little more of it's not like way out of whack compared to other places, but what sticks out is that the inbound migration doesn't make up for it. So you got other places where they have outbound migration too. Higher income kids from higher income families and higher BA attainment, they leave more often than their peers. But those same places, they're getting people in from other places. It's a wash. People are coming, people are going. In Michigan, we have people going, but we don't have people coming. In that, at least in that category, the 16 to 26-year-olds. So just some really interesting insights when it comes to our population movement. And when you think about that, our future workforce, this is it. All right, this is really an important factor and some, I think, important insights here too, especially as we talk about higher attainment of, the governor has a goal 60 by 30, 60% to have post-high school credentials by 2030, which of course is a really important goal for our economy. But we got to make sure that we have the type of place where people want to stay, because the higher their income and their educational attainment get, the more likely, according to this data, they are to leave Michigan. So how do you get the education attainment and inspire them to stay? Well, that's the $1 million question for Michigan in the future.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in today. We will be back here Thursday at 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, everybody. See you on Thursday.